with domestic violence, with drug abuse, with alcoholism, sexual abuse. My earliest memory is we were at the daycare with the daycare's husband, and I think even at that age, I knew something was going on. I just didn't know what, but I didn't want to leave my sister alone with this guy. I would always get in trouble for being around, and I just thought that that was weird. And eventually it ended up coming out that there was, a sexual abuse situation that did occur. Cops got involved, and yeah.
Vic, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's been a long time trying to get this thing together. You're a busy ass dude, and I'm busy. And then just, I watched your initial podcast with Bam, and I was really like, I got to talk to this dude. And I met you in person at the cigar lounge, and that was cool. Just being around other men that make you feel like you really got to grow in life. Like you're like, it's a cool environment change. So it's been.
Yeah, when it comes to podcasters, and I know that that's kind of not the end objective, but that's part of the objective, right? Is to jump on someone's podcast. I kind of pull back from talking to them because when you share your story, you don't ever want to feel like I heard this story before, but let's do it for the audience. It's a little unauthentic, you know? So.
Yeah, man. It's a cool journey that I've been able to learn about your story.
Yeah.
Like from just being, growing up on the streets to now leading other kids that are on the streets, like the whole full circle. It's awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of hurt that has came with that to empower that. So I think most people use their hurt and they get caught up and they hurt people and they keep that cycle going. But where does it stop?
Yeah. Yeah, no, for real, man. Yeah, let's just jump right into it. So where are you from?
I'm from Caldwell, Idaho.
An actual Idahoan. Yeah. Right on.
Yeah. I grew up in Caldwell. 6 sisters, no brothers, single mom, father role models I've had in my life weren't the best.
Yeah.
We've lived down in Long Beach. My dad, he's from Norwalk. We've lived down in Mexico and Texas, but I'm from here.
Right on, dude.
Yeah,
what was it like growing up with 6 sisters?
It's a lot. It's a lot. I used to think it was going to teach me how I thought it was going to teach me that everything that I needed to know about a woman, and that's just not how it works. So
yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot, especially being because I was a father figure to my sisters as well growing up, and I was their protector. And I think in the environment that I was living in, it was a little hard sometimes to protect. And there was a lot of points that you kind of feel like, well, I felt like I failed. So
yeah, were you like the oldest of the siblings, or
second to the oldest?
Oh, okay,
yeah,
that would have been a different dynamic if you were like the youngest out of 6.
Oh yeah, terrible. I don't know where I'd be.
So at what age did you start feeling like you had to take the leadership role in the house or be the protector?
So we grew up with domestic violence, with drug abuse, with alcoholism, sexual abuse. My earliest memory is we were at the daycare with the daycare's husband, and I think even at that age, I knew something was going on. I just didn't know what, but I didn't want to leave my sister alone with this guy. And I would always get in trouble for being around, and I just thought that that was weird. And eventually it ended up coming out that there was, a sexual abuse situation that did occur, and cops got involved, and Yeah, it was one of those things where my mom, she actually runs a daycare in Caldwell. It's called Nan's Place, and she pulled out from going to school to become a lawyer, um, to run a daycare. So her end goal was for no kid to ever have to experience sexual abuse, especially out of daycare, and parents could go to work feeling not having to worry about that. Um, she still works daycare. My sisters work there as well, so it's been a family thing. It kind of sucks too because I see, she's in on the east side of Caldwell, and she's been taken advantage of a lot. And she's trying to help these parents and these kids, and um, just the demographic there. It's just not the best, you know.
Did she open up the daycare because of that situation that had
Yeah.
happened then?
Yep. So she put all her dreams aside, and I don't think anybody's ever like, oh yeah, I'm gonna become daycare owner.
Right.
That's a lot of responsibilities, especially when it comes to other people's kids.
Yeah. Were you also around that scene then, growing up, like helping out, or how long has your mom been doing it?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much my whole life.
Yeah.
I since that situation, yeah.
What was it like for you as a kid working in a daycare center?
Um, Everybody got fed, and it was kind of hard being in a daycare, right, and seeing my mom take care of other people's kids, and then feeling like my mom has a big heart, right? So these kids, some of them didn't have birthday presents, Christmas presents, and we'd be doing that there when we didn't have the money to be doing it ourselves. And with six sisters and me, that's seven kids. So it was kind of, it took away from us, but it gave back. And now I look back, I'm like, okay, like even when I was locked up, like one of the biggest things was I'm not gonna let another man go without, like, commissary day, right?
Yeah.
And then you see who doesn't get it, and I would put a little care package together, shoot it to him. Wouldn't make a big deal about it, you know what I mean? But like, and that was my mom speaking through me.
Like a cheerful giver.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not
So
expecting anything in return.
yeah,
Which is interesting too from being on the inside. Like when you give someone, usually there's something expected. So to be the person that would like help people out is
yeah. And then it's like, I'd hear from my homies like, well, he's not a homie. Well, he's not a piece of shit either. You know what I mean? Like, dude's hungry.
yeah.
So it did shock a lot of people
Yeah. Oh, I'm
because
sure.
it was, hey, take care of your own, make sure, and yeah.
Yeah. So what point in your childhood did you start like getting into some troubles?
I remember being like 7, 8, and I got in trouble with one of the neighborhood kids. We went and stole cap guns.
Oh, really?
Little cap, yeah, little cap guns from Albertsons, and cops came and got us and put us in put our bikes in back of the patrol car and went and dropped us off, and yeah.
Oh, so they caught you at the store.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the first of it then, huh?
Yeah, and I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's crazy is like if I wanted, like, it's not that we were broke, right? But it's like it was my first interaction hanging out with somebody that was their thing, right? And yeah, look, I've always looked back and been like, I could have bought it, but it was the people that I was hanging out with that kind of, you know, encouraged that.
Right.
Maybe not encouraged it because that was their way of living, right? And they didn't come from money, so that was what they did.
They were just doing it more of a necessity
Yeah,
than just to get the thrill of stealing stuff.
yeah.
Dang. So did it progress from there, or was it just kind of like,
So honestly, it didn't progress up until it was about, I don't know, 11, 12, somewhere in there, and a sexual abuse situation was happening at home during this time, and it was with my aunt, and she was climbing into bed with me, and I was running away, and I was running away to the streets, and I ended up getting jumped in, and yeah, it was my way to escape the abuse. But then, getting into a gang. I was talking to a friend about this because like the physical abuse and love had been distorted over time. And growing up, like there was a lot of abuse in the home, and what would end up happening is we'd get fucked up, and then my mom's ex-husband, my sister's dad, he would come in and apologize and make promises, and it distorted what love was. Like it normalized that kind of behavior where, okay, I believe you, I love you, you're my father figure, like, and I knew he didn't like me, but in those situations, he was he was nice, and it felt good. You know what I mean? Um, but there was a point where I just couldn't wait to get big enough to make my way in that door while he was beating up my mom and fuck him up. And that's what ended up happening is I got big enough to where I was able to break down the door and see the abuse that was going on behind that, and I put him through a wall. And like my mom, she's a good woman. She's a very loving and very forgiving woman, and like my mom started having kids at 14, so we grew up with my mom. And I wouldn't say she's a bad mom, but she was a kid growing up learning how to be a parent herself. And I think this whole distortion of what love is, it gets muddy. Domestic violence gets normalized. It's a really ugly thing, and it's a generational problem, and it gets passed down. And I could only imagine what she had went through to where she had normalized that outlook on what love is and what a man is. So um, the domestic violence didn't slow down. It's just it wouldn't happen when I was there, and then I constantly felt like I had to be around. And what was happening was I was getting thrown on different pain, or not pain pills, but different pills for ADD, bipolar, this behavioral problems, this, that, the other, and it was frustrating. It was frustrating because I either sleep too much, wouldn't sleep at all, gained weight, lost weight. Um, and nobody ever took the time to say, "Hey, like, what's going on at home?" Like, maybe it's not a behavioral thing. Like, maybe it's something else.
Was it like school counselors recommending these things or what?
It was more aimed towards my sister's dad's. My sister's dad ain't pushing that towards my mom, and like I was a problem. I was a problem for wanting to kick in the door and go in there and handle business. You know what I mean? So during that time frame, I just felt like my mom was kind of controlled by this guy, and she was doing. I don't know. Maybe he forced her into thinking that it was something. It wasn't him. It was me, and my mom was going with it. So, um,
Did he ever lay hands on you too?
oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Me, my sisters, yeah, it was bad.
Did your mom try and protect you during those
She couldn't.
points? He would just abuse her then even more.
Yeah. And it became this thing where, like, I seen alcohol growing up, and he was one that just could not handle the alcohol, and I remember people being very scared around this guy, and like, hey, maybe you shouldn't drink, and then him getting really mad, and um, yeah, I just didn't really understand alcohol at that point because we weren't raised like my mom wasn't an alcoholic, you know. It wasn't at our family gatherings. And I think a lot of it had to do with prior to us, there was a lot of alcohol abuse, and it just wasn't a thing at family events or anything like that. There was just a lot of bad that came with it, so we avoided it.
Yeah.
But yeah, working our way up to I just felt like he was always that devil in my mom's ear, like coaching her through with his distortions. And like I think as a woman being in her feminine, you're not programmed, but you're wanting to go to your masculine, right, and take advice and kind of
Submissive, kind
yeah,
of, yeah.
right, and that's kind of how I look at it. Um,
Yeah, because that's his role is to lead. And so she's just wanting any kind of leadership or love or
yeah,
what she thinks a relationship should look like.
yeah. So when it came to my aunt, he he actually found out about it, and he told my mom like that was normal. I was a boy, so I liked it, and I could tell it was very hard for my mom, and especially after they found out that I got jumped in. But like when I got jumped in, I remember the feeling of like, okay, I'm with the homies, I'm with these guys, I'm brothers, right? There's the brotherhood. I grew up with six sisters, no brothers, so it filled that void. But then, what really what really made or distorted that feeling of, oh hey, these guys care, was the abuse, was the physical abuse, getting jumped into a gang, and then afterwards the hugs and the hey, you're a part of this, and it was just so familiar, or it was too familiar. It was like after my dad would fuck me up, my stepdad would fuck me up, then he'd come in afterwards and like show that love, right? So that's what it was. And then it almost, yeah, it distorted that understanding of, hey, there is violence in the world, and that's normal.
Your brain just familiarized
Mm-hmm.
getting jumped in and the sexual abuse and the domestic abuse, just getting
Yeah,
beaten up as that's what love is.
yeah,
And so when you went to the gangs and got jumped in and then they hugged you, you were
yeah, yeah. It
just seemed like normal. And that was love and brotherhood
yeah,
now.
it made the abuse at home.
Validated.
Yeah. So afterwards, there
What
was
age did you get jumped in at?
like 13.
Oh shoot.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
your mom found out that you had got jumped in. How long after that?
Very short after, she actually found when I got jumped in, they gave me a sawed-off shotgun. Um,
She found that.
she found that. And you know, I'm a kid, a 14-year-old, 13-year-old kid walking around with a sawed-off shotgun tucked in my pants, and I just it's pretty extreme.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty extreme. So she ended up finding it. It was tucked in the couch and in my room, and yeah, she wasn't too happy. And I remember going to a gas station, and at this gas station there was these guys that jumped me in, and I got jumped in by the older um, guys from my neighborhood, and
What's that experience like?
the getting jumped in part.
Yeah, like obviously you're I don't know 12 years old when you're starting to think about maybe joining up.
I
13.
never thought about it
Oh,
up until I was running away from home. Like that was never my like, oh, I'm gonna be a gang member. Like it just happened the way that it did.
were you just kind of in that area of like talking to some of the people that were in the gang, or how did you get
Well,
introduced to that?
I grew up on the east side, and like I grew up around everybody. So it wasn't that I grew up around a certain part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that really defined that. Once I did get jumped in, and it was the guys that I was hanging out with at the time, because now I'm going to alternative schools, and I'm going to I'm just around now because of the behavioral problems that were placed, right? I'm being put in classes with these guys, so it was almost like looking back now, it's almost like they were corralling us into kind of who we were.
Not giving you any other options, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that like the Alpha 1 school? Did you go to that one?
No, I don't even remember.
I remember that one was one downtown Nampa, but I guess if you were in Caldwell, it might have been a different one. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it was a long time ago.
Yeah, dude. I mean, 13 years old with a sawed-off shotgun, that's got to be a wake-up call for any mom. Like, or just like a shock. I mean, she's got 6 other kids. Plus, did your father or stepdad, whatever, did he have any of his kids of his own?
No.
Okay. So and he had one of his kids, was your sibling?
Three of them. Three of them. So what would end up happening is we'd kind of get pushed to the side, and like his family would come over. There'd be like birthday presents for them, and there'd be big parties for them. And when it came to our birthdays and holidays and stuff, it was very like my mom tried. She tried, and she gave us what she could. But again, like when you're a man leading a home, you have a lot more push than you realize.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if it's distorted love, then you're just passing that on.
Yeah. So how was it for you joining the gang life at 13 then? What was that life like?
I was a kid. The only thing is I had a sawed-off shotgun, and it was just normal.
Were you expected to do anything like the older guys?
Yeah. There's some things I don't want to get into it, but I just see. So I'll lay this out. Okay, is I jump on these podcasts and I talk and share my stories.
Yeah.
And I don't want to glamorize this life. What I really want to touch on is there was a lot of hurt that molded me into who I became until I realized that I was hurting people and I needed to heal. And I'm not upset with the gang life. That's part of my story, and that's what molded me to who I've become. And I think everything happens for a reason. And if I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't. Even the worst that I've been through, because without that pain, I wouldn't be moving the way that I'm moving now. And how I see it is, if I'm the one that changes things in my family, and I changed the direction, and I was the one to see the glimpse of all the hurt, then that's a sacrifice I'm willing to take, But the gang culture, and some people may take this the wrong way, but like, that's a culture, that's a lifestyle. And when you come to a gang member and you say, hey, you're running around with a gang, you're dumb. Right? You're telling this to these kids, they're going back to a home of generational of gang members. And it's no different. Yes, there's a negative and positive, but like there's no different than going back and telling a kid that all his families went to college. The same thing, right? Or law enforcement family, right? Like that culture sticks with you. But how do you start hatching away at the culture and start seeing the negatives and the belief systems that are hurting people and hurting us and our people? Like, how do we start focusing in on that? And I think it's about being honest and recognizing certain things, you know. But like even me going to these kids or talking to one of my homies and saying, "Hey, gang banging is dumb," it's gonna automatically shut down communication. And how I feel is like that will always be there. Selling dope, getting high, that lifestyle, prison, that's always gonna be there. And I know for me, one thing that I hadn't had the interaction with was building something of my own. So these past 6 years, like I've built my business and I have sacrificed. I have stayed up late at night. I have cried. I have hustled, and now it's just common sense that everything that I put into over here was the energy that I was putting over into this negative stuff. Now there's a payout. Now I don't want to leave society. Now I got something to continue to build, and I want to see this be built into something amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think what you touched on there too is that like your experience is what qualifies you to be able to help someone else, right?
Yeah.
All the maybe the gang life or whatever, and also showing people now the success that you can have outside. That success and that experience that you have is what qualifies you to help them, rather than just being like, hey man, the gang life's bad, but you're not showing them any other alternatives.
Yeah.
If that's all the alternatives that they've known their whole life from generations, then it's all you know. Then you can't really think it's a bad thing. Or if you're, like they look up to their parents and their parents were doing that thing,
And how it's just the distortion of love, right? It's me as a kid looking up at my stepdad and them saying, no, he's a bad guy. And you look up to a father figure, regardless of that, if that person's a bad person, that's your dad, right? And that's who's raised you, and the ugliness follows you. And that's a hard part too, is like looking into the mirror when you're angry and you see the man that you has destroyed the innocence in you, that has taken away from your family, and he lives in you.
yeah. No, I totally get where you're coming from there, man. I went through a lot of childhood abuse as a kid, and like just my stepmom was very abusive to me and yelling at me, beating me, everything like that. And then when I feel like I snap on my kids, it's an immediate thing in my head. Like I remember this is exactly what you went through, and it's like it's scary because I'm like I don't want to be passing. This is exactly how generational things passed on.
Yeah.
Because in this moment I know exactly where this came from. This is a taught behavior.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
if I pass this on to my kids, that's going to be another top behavior that they're going to pass their kids.
And that's just something that like we don't. I have a hard time because I'm not trying to force change on anybody, right? But I know what I've seen. I know what I've went through. I know changes that I needed to make, and like you can't help but think where you went wrong in situations. And I guess as long as you're making those changes, then that's completely different than what probably your mom has done, or the people that have hurt me, they've done. Is like if it has to stop somewhere.
Yeah. But just like you, man, I'm the same way. I've had people ask me, like, what would you do differently? I'm like, nothing, man.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change anything. I'd go through it all over again because there's so many things that had to line up for me to get to where I'm at, the lessons I had to learn to get. Otherwise, like, God had his hand in everything, even when I stopped believing in God.
Yeah.
Back when I was like 10 years old, going through all this, like, God still orchestrated everything in a way that got me to where I'm at now. But I couldn't have gone through all that
And Vanessa
without a reason.
Vanessa made this comment. Vanessa,
Uh-huh.
she's been on your podcast before.
Yeah.
But she's like, she told me God doesn't waste a hurt, and that really hit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we touched on like when you were like in your teens and stuff. Did you go to high school or drop out, or what?
School was, again, like I went through school, and I sucked at school because I was going through what I was going through at home. I was going through even being on the pain or the pills, the ADHD pills, bipolar pills, and like I wasn't me. school was the last of my worries when I'm getting fucked up at home and then sticking up for my family and then being told that like I'm the problem. Like, that was very it was a mind fuck. Um yeah, so and then even like this sexual situation that happened with this woman, to hear that I should be okay with it because I'm a boy. Like, nah, motherfucker, that fucked me up. That fucked like, did I like it? Did I not like it? Did like, is this normal? Is it not normal? People are saying it's pretty fucking normal, you know. And even like, I didn't even have like a girlfriend my age. That wasn't even like a thing for me. Like, it was really weird. I like how that situation really fucked me up. And I remember the first girlfriend I had was my first daughter's mom. Um, and we actually planned to have my daughter at 16. We said, this is what we're going to do. A month into being with each other. And we talked about our traumas. And I think we trauma bonded a lot. She was going through her own hurts, and me too. And that was our safe space. And I don't know why we were talking about having a baby, but we did. And um, being a teen father, I just remember looking back and not really knowing how to be a father, right? Like, but I knew what I didn't want to do. And after I had my daughter, I started pulling away from, coming around. Um, there was actually a drive by that happened, and it was on Mother's Day weekend, and luckily my daughter wasn't there or my daughter's mom, but my sisters were. My mom was, my cousins, and my mom told me, "Hey, son, like if you want to give me anything for Mother's Day, take you and your family out of Caldwell and go make a better living for yourself." And I did, and I went out to Twin. Um, I started framing out there. I lived with my aunt. Um, it turned into me doing dairy work. I'm from Idaho, but I ain't no farmer.
Yeah.
Okay, so me being my main problem is I ain't never been Mexican enough for Mexican stuff or white enough for some white stuff. So I've been in this weird like, you know, um, but I was herding cows, milking cows, um, and it was weird coming from like a gang attire to like herding cattle in my sleep,
Yeah.
and then trying to be a father and trying to balance work life with family and just going through that really working so much really it did damage mine and my daughter's mom's relationship, to where she was at home all day and she ended up stepping out of the relationship. And it was a big ordeal. She actually ended up moving back to Caldwell or Nampa, and I stayed out there for a couple months. And during that time, I'm like, this work thing wasn't about me having money. It was about me providing for my family, and I didn't have my family there, so it didn't make sense to continue. So me coming back to Caldwell, I knew, I knew I had to get protection because there was heat from every which way, and during that time frame in 2007, like Caldwell was bad. Like there was so many shootings, there was the deaths, there was just, you think I was the only 14, 13-year-old kid running around with a gun, like there was that going on. And I remember getting a little 22, and I just wanted it just enough for a scare. And at this time, I'm trying to do this whole parenting thing with my daughter's mom, but now I'm coming around, and I'm coming around the homies more, and I remember going to this party, and I went to go see who was there first before I my ride my ride took off, and I probably get 5 steps off the car, and I just see just rivals, and they're throwing up where they're from, and yeah, I ended up turning around, getting back in the car, and I remember just reaching my hand on the door, and I hear, "Hey, what do you claim?" And I turned around, and he gets a punch on me, and I think I pushed him or punched him. I pushed him. He stumbled back, and that's when everybody rushed in, and I pulled that gun out and I let loose. And there was a flash. There was a lot of flashes. There was the screams, the yells, the I'm shot, and yeah, I jump in the car and I take off in my ride. She thought I was the one that got shot until she seen the gun, and instantly I got turned into like the bad guy. And yeah, I ended up going on the run. Law enforcement hit my mom's house, my grandma's house. SWAT showed up, and I was on the run. And once I found out they knew it was me, they just passed the message: "Hey, you could fight this charge. You could keep running. Um, the deeper the hole, the bigger the charge is. So we'll hit you with the gang enhancement. We'll charge you as an adult. You'll be looking at prison time."
How old were you at this time?
Um, I just turned 17, or I was about to turn 17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I really didn't know how that whole thing was going to change my life. And I went from just a very weird transition, right? And now I'm um, a juvenile inmate, prisoner.
So that's not considered anything to do with self-defense because you're not old enough to own a
No.
firearm?
No, they said because I had the opportunity to get in the car, but I turned back, that broke that self defense. Yeah.
Damn.
And I even bought I believe I bought the gun legit from like a pawn shop coming out here.
Jeez.
So,
So you go to juvie then?
yeah, I went to juvie. It was my first time in juvie. I got to experience the whole run. So juvie, Nampa O and A. I got shot up to St. Anthony, the juvenile prison up there. Again, I just felt like in that transition period, I felt like this corralling effect again with the kids I was in these classes with. And now this is where these kids go. And I was one of them.
Did you know anybody in there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't really like too much difference in.
No, and what's crazy is there's rivals. There's homies. It's just one of those things where like people are going through their hurts, and like these kids are just they're away from their families. They really just don't know what we didn't know what we were signing up for,
What do those kids need most when they're at juvenile corrections?
and guidance. You got to think about like a lot of parents, a lot of uncles, and just dads, like they're in autopilot. And I get bills are important, but it's like the true freedom that you're giving you should be giving your family is those values and correcting anything that is flawed. And if you're not teaching your kids, who else do you think is going to be pushing something on them? Some sort of negative narrative or distortion, you know?
Yeah, because I go in there and I talk to a couple kids on every Thursday, and I just always like pray before I go in there. I'm like, God, just help me like with the words to help this young man out. But like, I was wondering, what is it that they need? Because I know I'm supposed to go in there like I'm with a ministry kind of thing that I go in there and talk to them. And I mean, most 90% of our conversations aren't even around God. It's just I want to hear their stories and let them talk. And like, I don't want them to feel like I'm preaching at them. More like a brother that cares, that rather than like another teacher or something. I just don't know what they need. So just didn't know if you'd have any better insight on that.
I feel like the biggest thing is just getting yourself out of people. I don't know, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, but I call it autopilot. Like people are just going through life and they're like, snap out of it.
Yeah.
Like little people are watching, and like one of the biggest lessons that I've learned was like going through, we'll touch on it, but going through getting in a relationship with my daughter's mom, my youngest, and she had a son, right? And I look back at this relationship and I feel like we don't give kids enough credit to what they absorb. And this kid called me dad, right? And my understanding was his dad wasn't in the picture. He wasn't a positive role model, and he wasn't doing the stuff that I was doing for whatever reason, right? And I had a hard time telling this kid not to call me dad. But I should have took the time. I should have took the time and said, "Hey, I'm your mom's boyfriend right now, and this is how a relationship works. And I'm Victor. You have a dad, but I am here, and I'm your bonus dad, or I'm your." I should have explained that, but we don't take the time to really see like kids. If they could absorb trauma, they could absorb those conversations. And they're tough conversations that people do avoid, and it's like, why are we doing that?
Like setting a healthy boundary.
Yeah, these are conversations. So with that being said, I think we need to have conversations with our kids of, hey, one day someone is gonna come up and they're gonna ask you these. It's about preparing them for life, right? And some of the realization of these life situations are someone's gonna come up and give you a gun, and they're gonna tell you to wait in the bushes, and they're gonna tell you this. They're gonna take, and that may be extreme, but that's happening, right? Or hey, somebody's gonna come up and they're going to ask you if you want to sell these drugs. And this is how you respond to that. And it's about and when we are living in a high risk situation or demographic, those conversations are crucial. And it's crazy because I remember thinking back to Dare. Remember Dare?
Yeah.
And it's like, if somebody comes up to you with
offers
drugs,
you free drugs,
say no to drugs.
Yeah.
They were onto something. Truly, they were onto something. But it's almost like when you can't frame the situation, it sounds very cheesy.
The problem with Dare was they never told you the good side of drugs. Like they always told you everything. They never told you like if you do try it, you will feel good for a little bit. But then they told you all the downsides. So when somebody did try it for the first time and then like, marijuana, whatever they would say, it just tell you like, oh, you're gonna be really tired and all these other things, but they don't tell you the good side. And then somebody tries it and they're like, oh man, I feel great. I mean, then you're hooked. And then, so it's kind of a hard, I think that's kind of where Dare fell. They didn't tell you the whole story, just the bad side.
Well,
preparing.
Well, here, let's talk about this. The first person I went to say, hey, she's pregnant, my daughter's mom, was my stepdad. The abusive, the drunk, the addict, right? And at the time, he was running his business, And like my relationship with money was distorted too. There was a very unhealthy relationship with money because I seen what money bring. And when my family had money, all it meant was my stepdad was going to go on a runner and we would go to Chuck E. Cheese. Sometimes we would be there for hours waiting for his connect to get home or whatever it was. Or we'd get the pizza to go and be rushed out of Chuck E. Cheese because he got that sack and he wanted to go get high. And we wouldn't see him for 2-3 weeks. And um yeah, there was just a lot of that, right? So unhealthy relationship with money. If that's what came with money, I don't want it, right? But obviously money makes the world go round. But he's the person that I went to and said, "Hey, like she's pregnant." And I thought he was going to put me to work at his job and he's like, "Oh, so you're ready to work?" I'm like, "Yeah." So that next morning I got up early. He goes, "All right, get ready." He told me the day previous. He's like, "All right, get ready in the morning or we'll start work tomorrow," is what he said. So I'm thinking I'm going to get ready. I'm going to show him that I'm ready, willing, and I'm a young father, and I want to work harder, right, to provide. I get up early that morning. I get some coffee. I don't even fucking like coffee. 16, like, come on. But this is what grown men do when we go to work, right? And he wakes up and he sees me. He's like, what are you doing up?" I'm like, "Well, work, right?" He goes, "No, after work, we'll talk." And I'm like thinking, well, okay, maybe he wants to. He ran a landscaping business, so maybe he wants to do a one-on-one with me mowing yards or whatever. That way I don't fuck anything up. That was my thought. So he gets off work. I waited all day, dressed in work clothes. And so he ends up coming in, going to jump in the shower. I'm like, why are you going to shower if we're going to go and mow yards? Right. And he goes, just hold up. He goes, wait in your room and I'll come get you. And while I was waiting in my room, 20 minutes later, probably, a big jacked up truck shows up and there's some paisas that jump out. And I seen a duffel bag. I seen two duffel bags. And I hear the doors open, them go into the kitchen, and then they called me in. And I just remember coming out, opening the door, and they were pulling weed, meth out of this duffel bag. And he's like, "You ready to work?" And there's just this distortion that I didn't want to let him down, but I knew it was wrong. And I remember grinding, and then also like the provider part, right? So I'm fighting like just it's a very twisted situation, and I'm trying to understand it and make sense of it. And my little mind at 16 years old couldn't. And I started hustling. That was when I first started hustling, and it was survival mode. It was I hustled so much, and I figured out how to hustle and what to do and what not to do, and what ways to treat people and talk to people. And I was 16 years old, and what was pushing that was I had to get this out of my hand because I knew it was wrong, but like I was good. I was good at it, and it was the taking the risk part and just the manipulation part, right? How do I get away with this? How do I stay off the radar? And how do I network? And what do I have on deck to provide to everybody? That way I'm just not limited to one substance, right? Um, and it was good for him, right? And I would give him the money, and I just felt sick. I didn't want nothing to do with the money, and it was almost like, all right, Okay. And in the day that I was finally like, I'm done. I don't want this. I don't want to do this. I remember him taking me to one of his friend's house, and he's like, look, I've been taking the money you've been giving me, and I've been putting it aside because I want to get you something. Like you worked for this, and it was we went and picked up my first pit bull puppy, and I worked hard for that dog, but it was like I was a kid. I was still like this, that, the other, but like this puppy, like it was his first dog, my first dog from this father figure. And I'm like, oh, he like I did want a dog, and it was like he took advantage of that. He knew how to manipulate the situation. He was I feel looking back, he was an expert at he was a predator. Those are predator behaviors is exploiting somebody's weakness and going in and taking advantage, and then playing that manipulation game. And yeah, and that's what it was.
Was that the first time you ever felt like your dad was proud of you? Or your stepdad was proud of you?
Yeah, there was that bonding moment where he's like, yeah, and I remember him even every time we'd go and pick up or whatever, like he would hype me up. And
Was he kind of like a business partner kind of in the venture?
in the dope game,
Yeah.
yeah, he was. The money was going to him.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Dang, dude. How long did that whole thing go on for?
So he ended up getting locked up. He went up to Cascade to work, and he got drunk and he beat somebody with a hammer, and they gave him work release while he was going through the whole court process. And I remember him coming up, and he showed up to the house one night, and I woke up to, I just want to see my kids. I just want to see my kids. And he started opening up all the kids' doors. And tells me, mijo, there's these little green men, and they're running around and they stab me. And he's like, and I didn't know at the time what substance it was, but it was meth. He was on meth. And he's over here like as if he was stabbed. And I'm a kid and I'm excited to see him. I haven't seen him in a long time. I knew he wasn't supposed to be at the house. I'm hearing my mom say what she's saying, and at this point my mom, she's just had enough of it. And I'm over here helping this guy look for little green men with knives, and I'm scared that I'm gonna get stabbed. You know what I mean? I don't fucking know. And cops get called, and cops show up. And then he calls the cops, says, hey, there's imposters here dressed like cops. So more cops show. And at this point, my sisters are in the room, and I'm this little dude trying to process what was going on. And I just remember like him holding my sister, and our living room was full with cops. And yeah, I remember them tasering him. My sister drops. They go in, and I remember running outside, and I didn't know if I should jump in. I didn't know what to do. They ended up taking him, and that was kind of the last. My mom ended up getting a divorce, and she lost the house because of the debt that he put us in. And I look back, and there's so much frustration there because like we were kids dealing with our house. My mom, she prettied up the house. She worked very hard, right? Her money went to the bills. Her money went to taking care of us and putting food in the cupboard, and not just for her kids, but for these other kids, and there was just so much more going on behind those closed doors than the neighbors even knew.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. So and when I got locked up, I felt safe for my sisters.
In juvie?
Yeah. I felt like I could breathe because I knew he wasn't around. Yeah. But it was very hard going through kind of what I went through, just because for 3.5 years I was up in the juvenile prison and I didn't get no visits. And it's not because my mom didn't care about me. It did suck, and it did kind of mess me up in the head, as far as like there's juvenile sex offenders and they're getting visits from their parents, and I'm not. And I wanted to see my mom. I wanted to see my daughter. I wanted to, like, I was just so disconnected from everything. And that was a big transition period coming in, where I transferred from to a juvenile prison. And then I get out, and in some of the best experiences that I had as a kid was in a juvenile prison. And it was cross country skiing, um, ice fishing, getting dog sled or mushers, helping them with their dogs for these races, and some of the people. So I experienced this, like, going through these different facilities as a kid. Like, there is some very very mean people that don't care about rehabilitation or nothing. They don't care about your story. They, you know, but there is people, and I think that's what really allowed me to hold on to seeing good in people, is going through what I went through and still seeing that there was one person, at least one person, that showed me compassion and treated me like I was human going through these facilities. And if it wasn't for them, maybe I'd be in a different mindset.
Yeah.
Eric Ostermiller over at St. Anthony's, and there's a lot of other staff, Miss Merrill, and like, they genuinely cared. It, he was like a father figure to me, and it was for like the first time in my life that I had a father figure that I remember. Like, I kept saying my baby's mom, right? And we don't realize how ignorant that sounds until it's pointed out, and how disrespectful it is, or like the mother. And he corrected me. I remember him saying the mother of your child, the mother of your child, her name, like kind of pushing that, right? Um, but there was little things like that came from a masculine energy that I've never witnessed in my life. And I remember even getting out. There's a home pass, and it's like 60 days before you get out, you go and set up everything that you got in the community, right? And at this point, I had a gang juvenile parole officer, and I was just another number to her, right? And she made it very difficult to even try to get out and do that home pass. And maybe she didn't. Maybe she's doing her job. She's looking out for the community. I done shot somebody. You know what I mean? So me to expect this program changes me, and like I. I I just don't want to play the victim. The energy that I was putting out through this whole thing, and what I was receiving, how can I not expect to have that come my way? So, but she didn't want to let me out to do that home pass. And he goes, "Well, what if I go?" She goes, "You're willing to come all the way out here and drive all the way out here, take time out of your life to make sure he doesn't get into anything while he comes out here?" He goes, "Yeah, I trust him." And yeah, he came out, and yeah, I got that home pass because of him. So
That's awesome.
yeah. And then but coming back, it's like being released and then coming back to the same environment that poisoned you. And not just the same environment, because I wasn't able to come back to Caldwell, but again, there was this corralling effect of this halfway house for juveniles. And I know there's never any real way to see and know who is actually taking programming serious. But when you're in a halfway house and people are getting high, that success rate lowers in individuals. And it's scary to think that people are putting in so much work to get to a place where they're sober, and then they're put into a place, an environment that is going against everything. And like you're thinking everybody's on the same page, but they're not. Everybody's going through their own thing in life, and there's some people that are waiting to get out of prison to bang that dope back. You know what I mean? And if you're in the wrong place, that could bring you down. So yeah, so I got kicked out of Canyon County. I wasn't able to come back without approval from the judge, the PO, a representative of the community. And I ended up moving out to Twin again. And it was very hard for me because at that time, I'm like, again, I'm still trying to build a bond with my daughter, but I'm not understanding what a father is. I'm not understanding what I've missed out so far. And everybody's looking at me like, just get your shit together, right? And I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know what that looks like. So I ended up going out to Twin, and I ended up getting shot. And I remember the night I got into it with this white guy out at one of the pool halls, and I got kicked out because he knew the guy. Like I was the new face there, right? So I get kicked out, and I was looking for trouble. I was looking for it. Even going back to like me shooting, I I didn't know how to express myself. I didn't know how to talk about these emotions and feelings, and I broke up with, well, me and my daughter's mom broke up, and I didn't know how to deal with that hurt, right? So I took it out on the streets. And then now this time, I'm looking for something, and I find it. And yeah, I ended up leaving, and I went walking back home, and this guy jumps out of the truck, it walks up to me, and I ain't never been good at talking shit, but I'll fight, right? It's just not one of my superpowers. And anyways, the last punch I get on this guy, he stumbles back, and I see him pull out, let loose, and one shot to the stomach. I drop. He jumps in the truck. He takes off, and something was telling me I wasn't gonna die, but I needed to get obviously seen. So I ended up going into this bar, and they're like, "Where's your ID?" I'm like, "No, I need a ambulance. Like, call ambulance. I'm shot." And he's like, "Nah, you're not shot." And I lifted up my shirt, and sure enough, there was blood. There was 2 bullet holes in me then. And ambulance come. Well, cops get there first, see me, throw me around, start frisking me, put me in cuffs. Then the ambulance gets there and like, what are you guys doing? Like he's the victim. He's shot, right? So in their job, in their where they're at is he's shot. He's the victim, right? So, but then I look like a bad guy. So I was automatically a bad guy, right? Um, I ended up moving back to Canyon County, and we were trying to get a hold of my PO at the time, and she wouldn't get back, and it was like 2 weeks, right?
What happened with the shooting? Like, was it just like a through and through, or
Mm-hmm.
was there any like
And
internal damage or anything? Or
so exploratory surgery. They actually 26 staples up, uh, pulled out my guts, seen and made sure that there was no internal bleeding, and everything was hit my left side and came out my backside. But yeah, no
that's
injury.
amazing.
God,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of important stuff in your guts.
yeah,
So
yeah. So they actually they violated my probation because I moved back, and one of the things was, well, if you weren't out past curfew, you wouldn't have got shot. So they hit me with that violation, and then moving without an address approval for an address change because I was out there with my aunt, and she just got done having like breast surgery um, from chemo or she had him removed, and she couldn't take care of me. I was like, motherfucker, you just got shot by somebody, and you're gonna go live with your aunt. Like, my mom pulled me out of there, and yeah, I got violated, and the judge tells me, hey, you know what? We're gonna give you 30 days discretionary. You'll finish your time out as a juvenile. Good luck on being an adult. And at this point, I go into Cannon County G Pod, and I remember it was when there was 3 bunks high, and they put me on the 3rd bunk, and I remember getting in the shower, and I'm still healing up, right? So I I get out of the shower one night, and I jump on my bunk, and I'm getting up, and I slip, and I tear my stomach open,
Oh,
and it was a big thing because when brought to these COs or these deputies, they're like, fell out of a kite. 2 weeks you'll hear something. And when the homies heard that, it was, there was a riot that popped off. Like, nah, like, you're gonna get them about a bunk. We ain't moving. And it was that first time I really seen that unity. Um, and they stuck up for me. That was another thing where it's like, well, they stuck up for me. You know, you don't get that a lot. Um, and I'm not gonna sit here and say that every gang member that I've come across is a bad guy. There's rhyme and reasons for a lot of the things that is done in that world, and I've never heard any homie say, "No, you're not gonna do good. You're not gonna not go home to your family." Like, that's not a thing. You know, a lot of people need to take responsibilities for their actions, because if I'm riding in a certain car and I'm being a shit stick and I'm getting high and I'm doing this, best believe I'm going to be sent to go put in work, right? You're not going to say, "Oh, my family, my family, my family," when you're trying to get out. When you weren't saying that when you were out here running around getting high, taking advantage of people. You know, so again, I'm not going to sit here and talk down on. No, there's some good people.
yeah. Yeah, I've heard that a few times from different people in here. A lot of people have great backgrounds. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom from different gang members that've been through a lot. They've seen a lot. It's just unfortunately, like we've touched on, the environment that they grew up on. It was what was expected of them, and that's how they had to survive. And that's how they found love, or they found brotherhood, or whatever it was that they.
We didn't have to do nothing. It's we didn't know any better, and the problem is we only know what we know, and there takes certain situations. There takes how are you going to react and respond to this situation, and if you're not having those crucial conversations, you're never. And this is where I found out about those crucial conversations is going into prisons, going into dorms, going into juvies, going into all these situations. I was prepped. Hey, have you ever been there? It's almost like when you're going through something, you want to hear somebody else's experience to kind of calm your nerves. So those conversations that could take place, they could help.
Yeah. So how long were you in county for then? You said 30 days?
30 days. Yeah. Got out, and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was no longer under the thumb of somebody else or directions of somebody else.
That sentence was topped out then, pretty much.
Yeah, juvenile. Yeah, and yeah, I didn't know what I was doing with my life. When I got out, I remember wanting to get into lineman school, and my juvenile parole officer was like, "Nah, that's a dangerous job. You owe $25,000 in restitution, and we want to see that paid." But they were okay with me going through a tattoo apprenticeship. And it didn't make sense to me. It really didn't. But I've always had a thing for art, and it was my escape in prison, and getting lost in a drawing. And even I remember looking back and when I was too little to break into those rooms to help my mom or my sisters, like I would get lost in a drawing, and it would drown out those sounds, you know. So I went through a tattoo apprenticeship, and just the way that I was living life at that time, it wasn't it. I was distracted by women. I was distracted with, like, I want to be a kid. I missed out on so much. I ain't never went to a dance. I haven't experienced these things. I haven't experienced my first car, my first, you know, like there was just a lot of things that I missed out on, and it was almost like jumping out of a time capsule, and I was actually, in my head, I was 16, 17 years old, coming out at 20, 21, you know?
Yeah. Is there a lot of partying and drinking and stuff?
Yeah,
at that age
there's
then?
partying, drinking.
That's a social norm to do at that age.
Yeah, and I was trying to figure myself out, and I just, yeah. So at this point, like the juvenile prison, I feel like I would call back every now and again, and at this point, I feel like I really let them down because they seen that I got shot, and it painted a picture that I was still involved, and they were disappointed. And it sucks to hear, like, man, the only father figure that I've had that doesn't owe me nothing, like, he's disappointed in me, you know? So communication stopped with calling in to St. Anthony, to my group. Yeah, I ended up going through a big party stage, and I fell back on selling. I was only selling weed this time. It was back when there was really good money in weed. Now there's not. It's a different environment or industry, but I fell back into the hustle, and there's a lot of things that come with that. There's a lot of environments. There's just a lot of, like, unhealthy things that come with that hustle. But I've always been good at it, and it's always something that I've fell back on because, well, I'm gonna stay broke, you know. I ended up getting shot a second time, and this was in Caldwell. And it was by a tweaker. Now I'm laying on, you know, a table, and I got 4 bullet holes in me now at this point from this situation, and they tell me I need a surgery, but since it's not life threatening and nobody's been found guilty or has pled guilty, and since I want to be uncooperative, I got to come up with the money for my surgery myself. 3 days later, the first time I sell meth, it was to an undercover. And yeah, I got hit with trafficking, 28 grams of methamphetamine to an undercover officer. I didn't find out about it until a year later. And at this time in my life, I was actually going through an auto body shop apprenticeship. And the walls close in, and yeah. So I had a lawyer, Misty Basher. She got me felony probation, 3 years. 3 years felony probation with the withheld judgment because it was my first as a felony as an adult. And a year into that, they gang unit hits the house and they find weed. And when I got put on probation, they tell me, "Hey, we don't want to see no weed in your system. It only better be opiates because that's what you have a script for." The first time I got shot, I was just smoking weed to deal with the pain. But now this time, you know, now I got these. Now I'm on probation. Now it's different. So the opiates turned into heroin, and I got lost in that addiction. I yeah, that that so my mom is now with another man, and I had a lot of respect for him because he came into my mom's life knowing she had 7 kids, and he showed compassion. And but there was a lot of stuff that happened behind closed doors still, and it wasn't the abuse physically; it was drug abuse, and we were using, and we did IV drug use together, and and at this time, I remember like he would leave something out, or he would get caught, and then I would be his fall guy, and it was frustrating because it's like, okay, yeah, I'll take the heat, and but you're gonna chime in on the disciplinary or yelling at me or kicking me out, motherfucker, when you're like, that's fucked
So
up.
you and the stepdad were using together, and then you would
Mhm.
take the fall if your mom found out.
Yeah, yeah. Or I didn't even know he got hit with something, and he'd blame it on me, and I'd come home and it was just a very like again manipulations, the tactics that were involved. There was you know, um, and then there was this using game, and again like the abuse continued, but it was a different type of abuse. So,
Yeah.
um,
So
yeah.
how did you get the introduction then for an undercover person? Did they approach you, or was it just like,
So at the time, they didn't want nothing to do with weed. Like it was again somebody in the mix that introduced us, and I was actually um, I had my concealed license permit, so I would purchase guns, and I would also um, like that was a thing where they were wanting guns, but the guns that I had were legit, right? But they were wanting to get meth and guns together, and I never messed with meth. It wasn't a thing. Like me doing it as a kid, that was completely different. Um, because I knew that came with serious charges. At the time, like you could get a pound of weed for 23, off it for 11 a quap, and that was a good chunk. And then nickel and dime. But like cops weren't looking for weed. They didn't care about weed. But yeah, they waited a whole year to hit me with charges because they were trying to get guns and dope in the same room, and it didn't happen.
yeah, yeah, you just breezed over just getting shot though by a tweaker. Like, what was that whole situation? Is that the one that you told Bam where you like almost lost your life because it didn't it hit like nick an artery or something?
No, so it came and entered. It was a pin hit away from my urethra, grazed my right testicle, came outside like and re-entered into my inner thigh, and then came back out the other side. But even with that one, it there was no life threatening, no internal organs, no arteries, no bone structures that were damaged. A lot of it was nerve damage, but they actually told me I would never be able to have kids again. So,
Wow.
and that too, like now knowing that I will never be able to give a woman a child, that limited my expectations on what type of woman that I didn't want to take that away from a woman. Like I didn't want to get involved with a woman. And there's been a lot of amazing women that I really good-hearted women that I avoided, or I exited the relationship because I didn't know how to explain that I can't give you a child, and I won't take that away from you, and I probably look like an asshole to some of these women, but it was a whole lot easier to do that than explain, hey, I feel less of a man because I can't provide that for you. And it's like human nature to want to build a family. And what was I doing? I couldn't do that.
You had one kid at a time, but coming from such a large family, where you want to have a larger family, like
No,
never.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to worry about anybody else. There's a lot of like, as a kid growing up, like I'm worrying and I can't protect. So that's a big worry, you know.
Yeah.
And the world is not. It's it's not a place where it's not a safe place.
So a year later, the gang task force or the drug task force, they
Yeah.
finally catch up with you then?
Yeah. So they hit me with at first again like, are these cops assholes? Some of them, yeah. But I was playing a game. I was playing a game, and I can't bitch and complain about what prize I received. Um. So there was weed downstairs. I told them, hey, you guys are gonna find it. And at this time, I was on 150, 60 milligrams of methadone, and you stay high. Like it was a ritual, not a ritual, but it was like a bonding experience with, like, oh, we're getting sober. Me, my stepdad, and my uncle, and we would go to these methadone clinics, and it was like a legit trap house with motherfuckers from the block lined up all the way around, and like that's where they would go to get their fix. And yeah, so heroin turned in the pills turned into heroin, IV drug use, and then like methadone a year later, and it was pretty quick. It escalated very quickly, and so at the time I was on methadone, they come in, hey, there's 8 grams of weed downstairs. You're gonna find it. What were you gonna do with it? Well, I've been on felony for a year. I thought I'd celebrate. Well, why is it still there? And then I made the dumb comment of, well, I could have made an extra buck off it, pay off supervision, or put towards supervision. And they're like, all right, all right. And they're like, we're gonna give you 7 days discretionary. You'll still get your methadone in there. We'll have it delivered. Get out, keep doing the methadone thing. And I get out, and a month goes by, and I just see undercovers passing by, and I knew something was up. And yeah, I ended up dipping out the back, and like 15 minutes later, they hit the house, and there was a warrant for felony possession with intent to deliver of 8 grams of weed. And yeah, I've ran for, I don't know, 2-3 weeks. Again, I'm documented as a gang member, as an active shooter. At like, when they came looking for me, they came prepared. And I just never wanted to be in some trap house. And I would turn myself in because I ain't getting shot. Done there, been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm good. Um, so yeah, I turned myself in, and at this point, I knew I was looking at a writer, and I got a felony possession with intent to deliver of 8 grams of weed. That's a fat blunt, you know, and I knew I could fight it though, but I wanted to fast track this whole thing. Like, I knew if I fought it, there'd be more money into the bonding out and this, that, the other lawyer.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to a buddy at the time, and he's like, well, you could take it as a detox, you know, do the cap rider, take it as a detox, get out, and you don't got nothing to worry about if you're not living that type of life. And I took his advice. I took the felony, and I got screwed over on the point system because my lawyer, my public defender, was like, well, just take the test again, your PSI again, and they'll come out with a new test or new score. Well, that's not what happened. I was already approved to go through a CAP program, but when I did that second PSI, my points stacked against me. So now I qualify for a TC, 9 months. So I got shot up to Cottonwood. Wasn't happy about it, and
I hear that's a tough program.
it is because it's a program where like people get caught up in their do the program. It's holding others accountable while looking at your own behaviors, right? And Nobody's saying go in there and hit people with felonies to where they lose their program and they don't get out of this program. Like, oh, you left your ID on your bunk, I'm pulling you up. Like, a lot of that was known in the program, right? But they're don't get me wrong, there's people there that are like trying to get people
Flop the rider.
relinquished. Yeah. So, um, but it was my first one of my first experiences, like seeing one of my homies that I grew up in the system with, like he did this program, but when he actually got relinquished because when he'd bring it up, the accountability part to somebody else, he'd come across too aggressive. He got relinquished for that, and like that was frustrating to me because I'm looking at it like, well, he's thinking it's an altercation. Like it's too familiar with the altercations, the feelings and emotions that come with like, all right, I'm gonna tell this guy, hey, your ID, I'm doing this program. I don't want to do this program, but I'm doing it. And there's a lot of emotions that comes. You don't know what's gonna happen. You like we don't get in other people's business. That's not our thing, right? And yeah, he just brought it up too aggressively, and yeah, but nobody took the time to figure that out about him, to school him on, say, hey, like let's work on this. Like this is a problem. This is your viewpoint. These are like let's restructure this situation, this experience, right? Let's recreate this, and it doesn't have to end in a physical altercation, right? But nobody took the time, and he got relinquished, sent to do his time, and I just felt like we were disposable. We were disposable. Like our kids didn't matter. Our life out in the world didn't matter. Like, and probably a month later or something like that. Like there was a situation where two white guys were in the shower. One was gay. He grabs the guy's dick, and there's three cardinal rules: no sexually acting out, no violence, and no drugs and alcohol. If you do any of those three, you're done. And that was obviously sexually acting out. Well, the guy goes and tells the CO. The CO says, well, go get an apology from him and see where that goes. And I heard this, and I'm mad. You just sent my homie to go do his time. You took him away from his kids. You didn't take the time to figure out what was going on through his head. And I ended up pulling him up on the TC booking system slip, right? And I pulled him up for not following through with job duties when it came to a sexual advancement on another inmate, or on knowing of a situation with another inmate. And the next morning, they called me to the bubble, and it was that CO, his higher up, and my case manager, the one that's in control of signing my release papers. And they told me, you're sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. And again, I'm like, that's this whole program is holding others accountable while looking at your own behaviors. And it was just a battle back and forth. And I pulled out. I'm like, yeah, I'm not dumb. Like this ain't how I thought it was going to play out. He's not getting in trouble. I'm getting in trouble. Like I know, cool. This is what we're doing. So I pulled out, and then a month later, they shut down the TC program, says it's not working. And within 24 hours, they have every TC booklet, pamphlet, booking system just tossed in the trash. And it turned into like a little county jail, right? That was the environment. So, but I kept feeling some type of way about this situation, and I remember calling my mom and saying, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna call. There's a PREA thing I could call on, and like I'm gonna make this call." And she's like, "Son, just get out of the program. Keep your head down. Just." And I'm like, "I can't, Mom. I'm sorry." So I do this call, and I thought like an outside agency was gonna come in and get us and take us to another facility, and that's not what happened. The same CO, the same higher up, they came and got me, and they're like, "You couldn't just leave it alone, huh, Villarreal?" And I'm like, "I guess not." So I fill out this form, about the situation, and then I thought I was going to talk to somebody else or something was going to happen with it. And there was I just got bad energy from every staff, case manager, everybody there. Like they turned on me, and it was like my behaviors was like any little thing that I did, like I got yelled out for, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then a week later, I get hit with laying down during count because my belt loop was touching the bunk. That sent me to go do my time. I never got to speak to the judge. Nothing ever happened with the PREA investigation. I was mad. I was heated. I was sticking up for something right. And I got burnt. And I had to make these calls to my family from this Orofino pass through because we're there for 2 weeks before we get sent out to the prison. And I'm over here being on my best behavior because I'm thinking I could talk to the judge. And once I realized I ain't talking to no judge, and like the conversations that I'm having with my mom and my daughter's mom and my sisters, and having to explain why I ain't coming home and why I'm gonna have to go do my time on, like, they're like, no, you fucked up, Victor. Own it. Like, take accountability for that. And I'm like, no, you guys don't understand. Like, I was sticking up for something right. And yeah, I let everybody down. And by the time I hit the rider side over on the yard, like, I was in this state of mind where I just didn't give a fuck. And that type of energy attracts a certain type of energy, and you're gonna fall where you fall. And during that time frame is the first time I injected myself with meth. And it was at that prison where I avoided it my whole life. And to be in that state of mind and just felt like I was in the pits and I was never getting out. And yeah, I ended up banging back meth for like a week in prison. And I snapped out of it, ended up making it. My points were low to where I made it to the farm. I worked ag crew. Yeah, I was on projects. So I actually ended up getting my CDL, and I got out in 2017. And again, a big chunk of time since I walked out. And yeah, I got in. I started driving truck. Got involved in a relationship. Like, again, it was just not a healthy relationship. I got involved in something that I couldn't provide in, so it almost like set everything up for failure. And nobody talks about like the uppers that are involved in the trucking industry. Everybody's on a go, whether you're snorting it, banging it, smoking it.
That's what I heard. Like, people would just put meth rocks in their coffee and just be drinking coffee and it'd have meth in it.
Yeah. So when I started getting high out here, in there you're getting high off very little, right? Over here, it's unlimited. Like it's everywhere that I was at because I was looking for it, but it's everywhere, and nobody teaches you how to stop. There's these users that can, the functioning addicts, right? But like, I wasn't taught that. I was taught to go, and I ain't never smoked it. I ain't never snorted it. I went straight to banging it, and like, it's a whole different ballgame, you know? So I got out here, I got stuck, and yeah, I got stuck in addiction, and I didn't know how to stop. And I remember asking my PO at the time, I'm like, hey, like, I just need rehab. I've done all this time, and I need rehab. I didn't start this until I hit the prison system. And he wanted to throw me in county jail and tell me that that'll do me just as good to detox. And I don't think with you're gonna stay high in county jail. I've seen the most dope that I've seen out of any trap houses in prison systems, in these jails, you know? And yeah, there was a little frustration there because I'm like, I'm not even gonna piss for you. I'm telling you I'm dirty. Like my white flag was up and I just wanted the help. But yeah, it ended up turning into I got sent back because a traffic infraction. I ran a stop sign or a failure to stop at a stop sign. And I finally got that cap rider that I wanted through a violators program. And while I went into this, I went in a gang member, STG labeled, and it was weird. The cap program like wanted to enhance that, and it's like, look, everybody knows like you don't gangbang at these programs. Like, if that was the case, if you're gangbanging, you're already in violation as it is. And when you get sent to prison to do your time for gangbanging at a program, there's repercussions to that, right? So I made a comment. I made a comment to the CO, and it wasn't. It was just like, bro, like this ain't prison. Like I'm getting out of here, and he took it as a threat, and I'm like, it's not a threat. If I was threatening you, I'd ask you, where was your favorite place to shop, or you know what I mean? What gym did you go to? Like, I'm just saying, like, bro, it's not that serious. Anyways, it was taken as a threat. I get it put in the hole. I get out. They're putting me in different pods because as I hit the tier, I'm starting to work out, which now everybody's wanting to work out, and it looks bad. It looks bad when you got 20 motherfuckers on a tier working out now because one guy hits, and it's just
They think you're programming everybody.
that's what it is. So, and my escape was working out.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it was my escape. It was something that a lot of people don't understand this. Like when you get locked up, so many people think it's like a bad thing, right? But like you have to find the light in it. And most people don't get this opportunity, but when you get everything stripped from you, your material, your treasures, your label on your job, when you get it all stripped from you, who are you? What type of man? What morals? What do you stand on? And part of that was being physically fit. When I went to the hole, they didn't take that. They couldn't. Like you could take my books, you could take my pictures, you could take my JPEG. You could take all that, but you're not going to take what I've worked hard on. And yeah, so I just ended up finding myself in a hole over and over and over again, and I just didn't win. And there was the last situation that I was in was I just felt targeted, right? Again, that was the energy that I was putting out. I was in that environment. That's what it was. I'm not the victim. It's just how everything played out. But there's certain COs that take things to the next level, and they're not taught how to de-escalate a situation, but just read the room. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that are getting into that CO field with no experience of like you're dealing with a certain type of demographic. A lot of these people have mental health situations. They have authority problems because of something. I'm not saying it's right, but there's more behind it, and there's a reason why people move the way that they move. And a lot of these COs don't take the time to understand that. So I find myself getting called down to intake, and I already knew something was up, and they're like, "Yeah, you're done here." And I'm like, "All right." I accept that, but I need time to cool down. Like I'm heated right now, and I've done all the program stuff that you guys wanted me to do, and I'm heated. And the CO's like, nah, you're gonna turn around, you're gonna cuff up, and that's when I snapped. I'm like, nah, you haven't earned it. You ain't gonna cuff me. I'm like, I know my way into seg. Open the door. I'll walk in. I'll dress out. I'll cuff up from there to take me to the cell, but you are not cuffing me right now. And there was about 12 COs, and they all surrounded me, and I knew it was going to pop off. And at this point in time, I didn't care. Like I tried your guys' program. I tried being nice. I wasn't programming here, and all right, if that's what it is, that's what it is. Like let's get it. And Tara Pierce, she was a CO there, and she comes in and she sees the situation, and she's pregnant at the time, and she's like, what are you guys doing? Like this is not prison, this is a program. And you could obviously tell this man like he's going through it right now, and he's telling you like he's telling you what he needs, and you guys are trying to escalate the situation further. And I remember she if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be out right now. I wouldn't. And for her to come in, and she ended up, she's like, let's go, Villarreal. She opened up the door, allowed me to go in. And she de-escalated the whole entire situation. This little lady. And yeah, I got sent out to the prison. I hit ICC, JKL. And when you're there, you're there. Yeah. COVID ended up hitting, and the whole prison really got shut down. There was not a lot of movement. Um, Phones were being delivered to the cell, passed around. During that time frame, I found a new passion because the day I remember being in the cell, looking down, they were calling people out for chow. And I remember every individual that came out let themselves go. Bushy beard, hair, stopped working out. And I looked in the mirror and I'm like, okay, I got to clean myself up, right? So we get back, me and my cellie, we get back. And before that next chow, I end up cleaning myself up. He sees it. He's like, bro, hook it up. I clean him up. And he was 9 years into a 14 piece. During this time frame, death toll is rising. We don't know what we're getting out to. We don't even know if we're getting out of prison. Like it's just that bad, right? And there's a lot of emotions because you're going through this and you're not even knowing if like is my mom gonna pass away? And then I'm stuck in this mentality of I'm a gangster. I'm not gonna cry about it now. I wasn't crying about my mom's health or anything or my family when I was out there. Why the fuck am I gonna come back in here and use that as an excuse to be weak? You know. So during this time frame, I hook him up, and he was feeling himself. He was excited. He felt good about himself, and it just like I'm like reading the room. There's this chaos going on, and he's happy. We go down and get our tray. And that day, I pulled out those beard trimmers and finally used them what they were intended for.
Not a tattoo gun?
Not a tattoo gun.
Yeah.
It was the backup, just in case they took our other one again.
Yeah.
And when we made it down there, every cell noticed these haircuts. They were asking for the barber. They were asking like, hey. And I remember hearing just in the backdrop as I'm walking, I'm walking with a smile on my face. And the grin got bigger when I heard, hey, the homie's a barber now. And I walked down, get my tray. And the COs noticed. The COs, they got their own life going on. They're delivering trays right now. Like the fuck they gonna notice that haircut? You know what I mean? So that just told me how impactful a haircut was for an individual, but also the world to notice as well. Um, a few months later, they ended up removing the restrictions, lifting the restrictions off the COVID stuff, and we got our weights back. And I remember being in the gym, and I'm working out, and three guys jump on this one guy, and they fuck him up. And there's blood, and they're smashing this guy out, and they're dragging this guy to the bubble because at the time these COs were watching a YouTube video or something, right? And they had to drag it. It happened for about 10, 15 minutes. And they were beating this guy in front of the bubble until these COs noticed and came out. But during this time frame, I'm looking at this all go down, and a guy sticks out because he throws his back up against the wall, and he's panicking, and it's a kid. And I'm looking at him while this is going on, and like I'm paying attention to his physical responses, and you know, like he's definitely in fear. And now I start paying attention to mine, and I look around, and the ones that are working out still and going about their day, and they're like, because you become like
Desensitized.
yeah, you become like a wall almost. Like you're programmed not to add attention to this because they're gonna see it and come, and you know. And I just knew that day something was wrong with me. I wasn't that wasn't normal, and to see that much blood and to see that like it's just not normal. And yeah, so I ended up getting out of prison. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I remember looking into Voc Rehab. Voc Rehab, there was a long list, a long wait if I wanted. And they're like, if you go to work, you got to let us know because then that dequalifies you for our program. And it's like, okay, so I'm supposed to wait, twiddle my thumbs, like in order to go through you guys and get the help from you guys. Like that doesn't make sense. So I was talking to my barber, and the idea of barbering came up. And yeah, I there was wait time before I started barbering, and I ended up relapsing. I ended up relapsing in that time frame, and I think it was just idling time, and I had some time to play with, you know, like I just that was my way of thinking, and I snapped out of it, and I just realized that like nothing changes. Like the thoughts, the situations, the people, like it just doesn't change. So yeah, I ended up starting barbering. I went through Nampa Paul Mitchell, and Paul Mitchell has a way. It's called a clap in and a clap out. So a clap in, once you get there, they encourage you to come through the program, and then as you leave to exit the program, then you know. And I don't know, there was about 10, 15 people that started up with me, and all these students and learning leaders are lining up on either side of you, and they're clapping and cheering you on. And halfway through this, like I'm like panicking, like my heart rate is increasing, my flushed face, and like I make it to this huddle room, and I get there, and I notice everybody else's face was, they were in panic too, and they were like, "The fuck is going on?" Like I felt like everybody else that day, and it was the beauty industry that made me feel human again. And there was fear, but this type of fear wasn't. And I've walked on tears full gang members, killers. I've sat across like that. That didn't scare me, but this beauty industry, this encouragement from strangers, I like that. And I invested everything I had into all my energy. I invested into the beauty industry, and I've done every program, every honors. I got every award that you could possibly think of in this beauty industry, and I wanted to be like it was just crazy to think that I'm like, okay, I just don't want to cut hair. I never sold just one thing when I was in the dope game. Like a regular basic person is thinking $45 a cut, $35 a cut. I'm thinking of how many other services can I fit into an hour and a half to make this a VIP experience and get paid the most. Right? Like I'm not settling just for that bare minimum. And I came across scalp micropigmentation, and it's hair tattoos. So for men or women, balding or thinning, I'm restoring confidence after hair loss, and that excited me. And I actually went back to school once I was completed with barbering, and I got certified in SMP to go get licensed for the esthetician. And I'm a man going through esthetician and, waxing, facials, back treatments, lashes, makeup. Like, I showed out. I could have done nails. It just, the grind and hustle that I have, I would have been successful at anything. And all that energy that I realized I was putting into gangbanging, and I was putting into to selling dope and living this prison life, like, I'm now redirecting that energy into something positive, and the payout's huge. I don't have to look over my shoulder, and now I'm building something that if somebody takes away, it's going to be because of my own ignorance. And then this time getting out of prison, like if I fell, I have nobody to blame but myself. It's not the parole commission. It's not my PO. Like, I did this. And yeah, when I walked out of prison this last time, I just, I didn't think I was going to relapse, but sometimes we need a taste of kind of just a reminder of, hey, yeah, this will always be here, and ain't nothing going to change. But this over here, I haven't experienced this success. Yeah.
How big has that ownership thing been in your life? It sounds like you're really good at taking ownership and not blaming others. And
you have to. There's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about, but I feel like it's not my story to tell, or it involves somebody else. But like, what I'm learning on this healing journey is the unhealthy blueprints that I had of what a woman is, what a man is to a woman, what a relationship, what love is, what being a productive member of society is, what has been distorted. And I've heard women being unaware of those things. And I had my daughter going on 2 years ago, and I never thought I would be able to be a father again. And now that I'm involved in her life, like I'm answering to a lot of the stuff that my oldest daughter, missed out on. Now when I go and pick up my daughter and rush over and give her a hug and a kiss and try to figure out what's wrong with her, like I realize that my daughter didn't have that, my oldest. And it eats me up. But a lot of things that eat me up, I've learned that I can't play this victim and be down on myself, because that's not going to do anything good for me. It's how I'm changing it right now. And what I've failed to see is, like, people think that you get out of prison and like everything's good. It goes back to normal, and you're nah, motherfucker. You have a lot to deal with, and you're gonna get so blind by the success that there's going to be a situation that could pop up that brings up all of your traumas, and you're going to have to answer to a lot of the things that you've done or you haven't dealt with. And hopefully it's a situation that you can recoup from. And that ended up happening with me. And I don't want to get too much into it, but like, I realized that domestic violence was normalized. I mistreated women. And it wasn't even like, it's not even the physical abuse that occurred, but it's more than that. It's the manipulation tactics. It's the how you talk to women. It's the cheating, the stepping out on your family, like everything that I fucking hated And that man in the mirror was every man that stood before me and taught me something negative, like, lives within me. And I'm the one that's having to answer to that. And I'm okay with that because I know what I'm going to do with that. And I'm going to change a lot of internal stuff, but I'm also going to change what's occurring in my family, you know, the generational trauma and the lineage trauma. Like, I'm that motherfucker in my family that's done making excuses and is going to hold myself accountable when most people wouldn't. Like, it's not easy to say, hey, you know what, I've hurt women and I've degraded them and I've looked them at as objects, and now I'm doing the true work to change that because I never want no man to treat my daughter that way.
That's so powerful when you can take that ownership and just change those generational curses. Like, I always love looking into people's lineages into life and seeing at what point something changed. Like I went down a rabbit hole the other day with Trump. Love him, hate him, whatever you want, but like somewhere in the Trump line, someone had to change, and now they've become successful because I looked into it. They came from like Germany and they were farmers, but like somebody had to change that, and it's the same thing for any family or anybody that's had like drug use in their family, and somebody has to change that generational curse or abuse or anything else like that. It's just such a beautiful thing, and I think that's what I really try and just keep in mind whenever I start to feel myself slipping. It's like, man, you got to be that one that changes. Like, you got to be that chain breaker.
Yeah.
You know.
And there's so many, like I said, that autopilot, motherfuckers are stuck in it, and they don't realize. Like, I went through child custody case and 50 plus visits of being a father and supervised visits. Like, that could destroy a man. Like, I was sitting there with other men going through it, and I would see people on the roster that I was not sitting in these visits with, but they were having visits at the same time, or they were leaving as I was getting there. And like, I could see these guys like falling. I could see them stuck going back into their addiction or playing the victim, or like I pride myself in those visits. Like, I sat there and I made the best of it, of those 2 hours with my daughter. And it's not easy to like take accountability on that level. Like, I got to know my daughter for 2 hours a week, and I showed up, and it wasn't cheap. And because of where I'm at with my business, I was able to pay majority of it by myself. And then now I've created a network of people that trust me to where I needed a $20,000 loan. I needed a $10,000 loan. And with not a blink of an eye, here you go. But I didn't have to go back to selling dope or putting myself in an environment that destroyed me. Like it was my time to redefine who I was and to solidify that at the age that I'm at now, walking out of prison, realizing the belief systems that no longer served me. And it sucked that these life experiences happened on my way up to the top. But like, I didn't want to be a fraud. Like, I know there's a lot of people that look up to me, and nobody wants to be like, what is it? You never want to meet your hero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm fucked up, and I'm learning a lot, but I'm an amazing dad. I'm a business owner, and I'm finally being productive and just using that energy for something good. And I inspire people, and I don't think I'm better than anybody, but I know that I'm better than what I used to be. I just want to, during this time frame, like, I realized, like, what are some of the things that the prison system or nonprofits are missing to really boost the success rate in this? Because it's an industry at this point, right? And we could create the us against them mentality and play these victims, but like when does that change? When we take accountability, when we start making change, and when we start holding each other accountable, when we start saying, "Hey, like I'm tired of going to funerals. I'm tired of hearing about overdoses. I'm tired of going to funerals and sitting down and looking up, and the only pictures that they have is when they were a kid, and then active addiction or prison pictures. Like, nah, motherfucker, live life and experience some things and make those changes. And I want to go to a funeral where my homie jumps in front of a moving bus to push some old lady out of the way. Like that's honorable, you know. But we have this mentality of in the gang culture that suicide that's not how we go out. But sticking a needle in your arm and wanting to get this close to death, what's the difference between that and pulling a trigger and not knowing if there's a bullet in it? You know what I mean? Like, that's self mutilation to me. And I'm just, yeah. So within this time frame that I've been going through the child custody case and dealing with what I've been dealing with, like, I've asked myself, what can I give back to a community that I once took from? And a lot of it has been mentoring. A lot of it has been, we actually me and Michael opened up a nonprofit, Connect Correct. And it's bridging the gap between prison and society's resources to make a clearer plan for inmates getting out to boost the success rate. Um, Also targeting trauma that prison environment created and the traumas that aren't being touched on based on somebody's charges. So I got hit with drug dealing, I got hit with the shooting, but like, what led me to that? Like, we're targeting one thing, and it's just to tell the community, hey, we worked on something, and it had to do with these charges. But there's more to that, like sexual abuse. How many people are out there experiencing sexual abuse, and they're taking it out in addiction or anger, or maybe they're keeping that behavior going, and it's like, when does it stop? So I really do think that those are big things, that and to say that the prison system is in full control of that and they're responsible for that, that's a little unfair. That's a little unfair to give that much responsibility and like, we want the prison system to be the fall guy, but we don't want to take accountability for our actions. Like, that, nah. Like, there's some amazing people in the prison system, and once I started doing good, I realized that there is people that genuinely do care. And I've walked into the prison system that I once walked in. Like, I walked out 6 years ago, and I've walked into ICC. I've walked into the yard, and I'm seeing these programs that they have. And never once did I think I'd be walking down the hall with these wardens that I once looked at as enemies, or like they didn't care about us. And now I'm walking in to give my advice on how to make these programs more approachable for the individuals that want that. And I kind of feel like uh, I'm a voice for those that haven't found their voice or are stuck in their prison that they created themselves, that they didn't know they created, and I'm the help that they didn't know they needed.
How'd you get involved with going into the prisons the first time?
So what's cool about my relationship with Michael is when he got out, I met him in church. And he was there when I got baptized, and he's like, bro, I see what you're doing, and like, I want to be a part of it. And I hear that all the time. And then these guys get out and they relapse, or they're gangbanging, or they're doing something that I am not going to be around. I don't want you around my daughter. I don't want you around what I'm building. I can't have you at my business. And I told Michael, you put in the work, like, we'll see where you're at. Did I have faith in him? I'm not gonna be honest, like, or I'm gonna be honest, like, it wasn't. I didn't. After time and time again, you start losing faith in people, right? But he got out and he showed me things that he was working on, and he not only did we cross networking, right, but like I introduced him to my people, he introduced me to his, and it's been a beautiful relationship where also like that's another reason why we started the nonprofit is there was certain things that I was mentoring him on that all of the classes that he's done in there didn't prepare him for, right? And I do think I bring a lot to the table because I know how I'm going to react and respond when put in a situation where I've failed. And a lot of people getting out of the prison system need to understand that life isn't always good. And there's going to be some bad times that do happen. But what are you going to do in that time frame? Like life is good. Life is easy when it's good. But life isn't like that. Life happens. And yeah, but me and Michael, we have put together some stuff and we've worked on a lot of projects together, and you know, we got him up to a point where like he's running his own team, and like I'm very proud of him, and he's building his family and healthy relationships, and but the world needs more, right? It just can't be me and Michael winning. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. I was really, really stoked to sit down with Michael and be able to talk to him. He's a cool dude too,
Yeah.
and I'm sure at one point all of our lives have crossed on the inside, and I just didn't
Yeah.
even know it. You know, I know like Michael's and I had to because we talked about our timelines.
Well, even sitting down. Okay, so you heard of Rise?
Yeah,
What do you think of Rise?
I've heard of it. I don't know exactly like all the detail. I know you guys
Bro,
go into
right.
like Treasure Valley CRC and they go to ISCC and all those other places and talk to them about like what. From what I understand, is you guys are trying to help them get ready for on the outside. Is that correct?
No. Uh, what it is it's putting COs and residents at the same table, and we're actually understanding each other's hurts and traumas, and also how to work with certain types of people. Instead of conflict, there's a way to approach a certain person, right? And instead of shutting down communications or having that conflict, it makes a person think, how can I work with this type of individual? And it's not just COs and residents, and it's how can you take that programming and apply it to when you get out? And there's so many different ways that you can apply it in a certain job setting, working with different people that they don't understand a prison background, and they don't, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much, right? And it targets traumas. It brings out your whys. It also shows you what type of person you are, because now you're in relationships with these women out here and you're able to like pinpoint, okay, how do I need to be communicated with? Also, how does this individual that I'm with and building a life with, how am I needing to be that person for her or my kids, right? So there's so many. This program has been put together by residents, for residents, but also for staff, and it does it show. Like I've sat there with people that I've been in active drug use with, gang banging, youngsters that I've helped sharpen steel with, and like solidified these negative beliefs, and now I'm sitting in a room with staff and with these people, and we're making some good choices because we're tired, right? And we got to change certain things, and we want to. Again, I'm not. Everybody is going to have to go through whatever it is that they're going to have to go through to see things different. And that includes staff, that includes inmates, and not all bad people will remain bad. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. I was talking to Oscar over at Probation and Parole, and he wanted to sit down with me. He's seen me, that picture of me with Chad and the other wardens and Michael, and he's seen me in my active addiction. He went on a manhunt for me, and like he wanted to know what changed, but he also wanted to know what made a good parole officer a qualified parole officer, and what made a good CO transition, their characteristics transfer over into a good parole officer, and I got to share my thoughts, and a lot of it's just reframing situations and experiences. Yeah, there's just so much good when I walk into that prison. Oh, let's talk about Restoring Promises. Have you heard of that program?
Yeah, I was a part of that program when I was there.
It's awesome. They're taking 25 and younger inmates, residents, and they're giving them the option to make the choice and say, hey, I want something different. That's their only qualification. It's no debriefing process. You don't have to say, oh, hey, I'm going to go telling all these guys to get into these programs. That's huge. There's no, even DORs happen, right? But it's the environment too that's to be expected. And to make the only qualification to say, hey, I want to try this and I want to give it an opportunity and a chance, or I want the opportunity and I want the chance, like that's huge. And it pulls these kids out of an environment of drug abuse, addiction, or pulls them out of the mix so they could really focus on what's important. And they're being housed with lifers, which I think it gives lifers purpose too, you know? And I think it's a huge program. And I believe there's 9, right? 9 states that are doing this program.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many there's.
So me looking into it, it was 9 states that are doing this program, and the mentoring stuff that the IDOC is now offering and allowing these inmates to be a part of, like, that is huge. That's huge.
Yeah, I think mentorship in general is just
something
everybody should have.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the guy that actually started the RP program here in Idaho on a podcast. He's the warden now at SPWCC, Doggo. And yeah, it was just really cool seeing that whole thing get started up. And as an R&E on the yard, I would go in there and sit in there like circle time and, pass I think it was a stick or something. And just hearing everybody's stories though, and no one person talks at a time, and nobody like talks down to each other. You can have like a healthy ways of having conflict, and yeah, I think there's more of that calling each other out.
Yeah.
But that kind of accountability is important.
Yeah, even the Just for Us have you heard of that?
Which one is it?
Just for Us.
I have not. I haven't heard that.
So Just for Us is they're having it and housing it at different facilities. A lot of it, I walked into my first one right here at the PMP in Boise, and me and Michael went in and we sat down with parole officers and parolees, and to hear a parole officer say, "I'm struggling right now because I see the hurt that individuals are causing to their kids." Like, I don't want people to be high around their kids. You should want that for your own kids, So we're putting these individuals in a place to do their job and expecting them to turn a blind eye. Like, shit starts not making sense. Like, our expectation, we expect something out of somebody that we wouldn't. It doesn't make sense. Some of these belief systems that we have, and it's a little unfair. It shuts down communication. But like, to hear a parole officer say, like, I care about your kids. I try and I just don't know how to get through to some people, and like, they're going through their own lives, and there is some good people on both sides of the fence, and that's just life, but to sit down, hear that, and also to hear what's going on in a parolee's life and like the struggle, and then like it's aha moments on both sides. I think it's very important, and I'm actually very excited to see how big that program gets.
Yeah. I think you kind of touched on it on both sides though. There's like when the officer can personalize the resident, and the resident can personalize the officer. I know that was a big thing that changed for me. It was like the first few years I had that definitely like that power struggle when I was a CO. And then once I finally I seen a lot of my buddies that I grew up with in there. And like, if one day it just clicked, it was like, I could have been in here just as easy. Like when you would hear inmates, they would tell you like the only difference between you and me is you didn't get caught. Like eventually, like it starts to click, and it's so true because there were so many times, even
Yeah.
while I was working there at the prison, I would drive drunk. I would be doing all these
Yeah.
things that I could have ended up killing a family just so quick and easy, like stupid decisions. So when you realize they're just human, they made mistakes. I've made mistakes, and I really just didn't get caught. I think a lot of things clicked for me then.
Well, when Oscar asked me what would make a good parole officer or somebody in power, like like my biggest thing would be, where are you at with your healing journey? Have you started that? Because chances are, if you haven't, there's some things that you're doing that reflect on that in a negative light. And how are you going to help the next man when you haven't helped yourself yet?
Yeah. Yeah, what's the purpose behind you wanting to be a parole officer?
Yeah.
Not is it just for the money, or is it just for, or is it actually because you do care about somebody else's growth?
Yeah.
I think that would make a huge difference in someone's outlook on whether they're actually wanting to relapse someone, or not relapse, but like put them back in because of a power struggle, or because they think it's best for them, or they want to give them another chance, or. And I've never been a PNP officer, so I have no idea like what any of the battles that they go through are, but. You said that you met Michael at church. How big of a role has church been for you in this whole?
Huge. It's been huge. It's God is somebody that I've always talked to, even as a child, going through the abuse stuff, in the cell. He's the one that I've talked to on a stretcher, and he comforted me in the darkest parts of my life. Yeah, while I was going through the whole stuff with the child custody case, and like I stopped drinking. I'm now sober. I was on steroids for a while, and I didn't realize how similar mindset steroids put an individual that's very similar to a meth induced mind frame. Like it is bad. It is bad. You're a sexual deviant. You have a shitty attitude. You're just aggressive, and your anger, like that comes out. And again, that's what came out in me. And yeah, there's a lot of things that I had to answer to, and luckily, like I'm looking at it the way that I'm looking at it, and I've made a lot of good choices. To help the next man, woman, and child. And I'm going to continue to do that. I've also teamed up with, Breaking Chains, Sheriff Donahue. Me and him, we met at a Breaking Chains event, and Sheriff Donahue, he's seen a version of me that wasn't a good guy. And when I first seen him at this event, I kind of felt like, all right, you're the sheriff, right? And then the person that I'm aiming to be now told me, hey, go up and talk to him. Reintroduce. He judged you because of what you were putting out. Now you're putting out something different. So I walked up to him and said, hey, you know a version of me, and I'd like to reintroduce myself. And I told him everything. I told him everything that I've experienced, what I've went through, and that led us into a sit down to where, like, I don't want to be the face of domestic violence, but I do want to share my story. And again, like there's so much that we're missing because we're stuck in autopilot, and maybe we keep that hurt and anger going where we just need to take the time to start working on ourselves internally. But like he has a nonprofit as well, and it's to bring domestic violence awareness out into the community. And like there's just so many good things that are happening right now, and again, God don't waste the hurt. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, that's cool. And then you decided to get baptized too, and
yeah, I got baptized.
It's a cool moment.
Yeah, it was good. And I just felt like I'm a different type of Christian. I'd like to think like I'm not gonna judge you because I've been judged, especially by the Christian label, and like that's just not my job.
Yeah.
You know,
It's only one person's job. So what's next for you, man?
we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it going. Obviously, a nonprofit. There is a lot of work, but there's a lot of money involved. There's obviously like the location. There's this, that, the other. But like what me and Michael talk about is like we're still doing connect correct things. We're still connecting. Like there's nonprofits out there that like addiction. We don't want to deal with addiction. I'm an addict. Like if I'm around that environment, like I'm gonna want to get high, and I need to know that about myself. And so there is a nonprofit that we work with, and we have worked with, and have sent people to. They actually get these people approved through their insurance, or get them insurance and get them into an out of state rehab. A lot of these rehabs right now are being utilized for people to run away from their responsibilities because they don't want to go to jail. And I'm going to say that's exactly what it is. So it's poison right now in these. It's like a halfway house. Like you got some guys that would be successful, but people are getting high there and then they fall. And then you expect greatness out of them. You're not putting them in greatness, you know, and you're putting a very fragile person into an environment that has once broke them down and destroyed them, and you expect different. They haven't had enough time to stand on their feet and really solidify their sobriety in themselves. So yeah, a lot of these not halfway houses, but these rehabs are they're runaway for people so they don't go to jail, but they're still like the Suboxone thing. Like either you're sober or you're not. And if you're relying on Suboxone to continue to get high, but still claiming sobriety, like, no, man, you're still using it as a crutch and you're still not taking responsibilities. But I feel like if these guys were to get sent out of state to a different environment where nobody knows them, they don't have to play this like just work on you. Take that time to really work on you, and God pulls us out. And you'll know when he pulls you out to focus on you. So take advantage of that.
Yeah. Where's the best spot for people to get in touch with you?
Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm pretty good at what I do. So I got clients flying in to me from all around the world. Students. But like, that's not my purpose or passion, right? I'm great at what I do, tattooing hair. People know me on the other side of the world for what I do in my industry, and I'm very well known. But with that being said, that's not God's plan. Like that's a way that I am able to financially be stable for myself and for my family to help others, and that's a blessing by God. But there's a bigger mission here, and if it takes me sharing my story and getting it out there, like, yeah. But yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Real Time Results LLC.
That's awesome, dude. I really appreciate you coming on here and telling your story. Like I think that's why people can really connect with you, is because you are vulnerable and you'll tell like it is, and you know you're not trying to put on that ego or bravado. And
I've ego fucked me up, and I'm good.
yeah, yeah, I feel that, man. No, I really appreciate it. I mean, God lined it up, and I'm so glad I was able to meet you. And
yeah, we finally got it locked in. So
yeah, looking forward to seeing what we can do in the future.
Yeah.
But all right, dude. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.